Welcome back to Law and Crime. I'm Stacey Delicat. Thanks so much for being with us on this Tuesday afternoon. Well, there you heard it, the jury coming back with a guilty verdict on all counts. Lindsay Partin set to be back in court for sentencing next month. Now, this wasn't a quick deliberation. In fact, the jury deliberated for more than a day on this. So clearly, no one was, they were not all completely convinced when the case wrapped up. And I know amongst our viewers and our experts, not everyone was sold on whether or not she was guilty or whether there was, in fact, enough reasonable doubt to acquit her. I want to bring on my guest right now who is joining us live via Skype, Roger Foley, criminal defense attorney. Roger, your thoughts, were you surprised at all when these guilty verdicts came back late Friday night?
I was surprised. I watched the trial and I thought that there was definitely some reasonable doubt. You know, when the father was speaking, he set off some alarms, lying about the milk, other issues. He just didn't seem, his demeanor seemed off. You know, he just lost a child and something seemed off. And I did think that there was reasonable doubt. So I guess, well, the jury has spoken. So what are we going to do?
Right. Well, I want to hear more on your thoughts. But first, let's go back to Lindsay Partin's interview with detectives that took place back on March 9th, 2018. After little Hannah Weshi had been, I believe, hospitalized with her injuries, when she admitted to some physical abuse of the girl, because this taped interview is something that played a big part. Here she is essentially confessing to hitting the girl. It's a short clip from the prosecution's closing argument when they replayed part of that interview. And as you heard, Lindsay Partin there did admit to shaking Hannah for 8 seconds, for shoving her, for smacking her on the chin. Roger, I want to ask you, I mean, certainly should not be condoned at all what this woman did, particularly to a child that's not even her own child, although no one should be physically abusing a child. But when you heard her describe these acts of abuse, what was your thought? Because, you know, the prosecution tried to say, look, her actions caused the injuries that killed Hannah. But when you hear about, okay, she shook the little girl, the girl's 3, it's not an infant, for 8 seconds, she shoved her. I mean, to you, does that seem like it could cause injuries grave enough to kill her?
No, and she seems sincere. But again, you know, we're not the triers of fact. The jury is. It's apparent that they relied heavily on this testimony, on her, you know, her testimony with police. And I think that's why she was convicted, because she admitted to hitting. The jury didn't have another cause that could have, you know, what harm came about that caused this child to have a brain aneurysm or a traumatic brain injury that would lead to her death. So if that's all you have, I think they made the leap in logic that, hey, she must be holding back and maybe she hit this child harder than she led on to.
Well, you know, earlier, Roger, you brought up the fact that the father in this, Jason Weshi, he seemed a little bit off when he was on the stand. Where was his emotion? Well, a lot of people thought Lindsay Partin, when she was on the stand, particularly during cross-examination, really hurt her own case. I want to go back to those clips right now and listen as prosecutors cross-examined her, questioning her about what she did to the little girl. Roger, you're a criminal defense attorney. If that's your client on the stand, how worried are you after that cross-examination?
Worried, because we live in a society now where you don't touch another person's child, right? Back in the day, teachers could smack children on the hands and maybe even slap them across the face. But, you know, this is 2019. You don't touch another child. It doesn't belong to you. There's even arguments that you're not supposed to slap your own child or discipline them, right? I mean, it's a major dilemma in our society. Which is the correct path to discipline a child? Is it timeout, or is it physical, or, you know, what extent? But this hurt her dramatically. But again, it really just restated what she told police, that's what she did. She believed that she didn't do anything to excess. It was simply a disciplinary.
Right. Yes, that is true. But we do have sort of her demeanor here as she is just acknowledging, yes, you know, I thought that was okay. And she certainly is not showing any remorse here for that behavior or anything like that. Do you think that makes jurors sort of turn on her in a sense? Because you do have, as you said, this, place we are in society right now where physical abuse is really frowned upon?
I mean, it definitely hurt her. I mean, she's sitting there at this point in her testimony. She's not shedding any tears. She's being cross-examined. She's answering questions. But I think viewers could see that throughout the trial, there was some signs of you could tell that she cared for the child. She had been babysitting her for some time. Again, it's only my personal thought. It's not necessarily legal knowledge here. It's the jury believed that those acts should be condemned. And obviously they believe that those acts led to this child's death. So the jury has spoken.
The jury has spoken indeed, although I am sure there will be some appeals coming down the pipeline. We're going to take a quick break. Roger will be sticking with us when we come back. Much more on all of the trials we're watching. We'll check in on Verdict Watch in Florida. And coming up in just a few minutes, we'll be talking about that Robert Kraft sex tape from the day spa in Florida. Should it be made public? We're going to discuss. Stay with us. Welcome back to For the Record. The Lindsay Partin trial, well, we got a verdict late Friday night after some 12 hours of deliberation. The jury returning guilty verdicts on all counts, guilty in murder as well as a number of child endangerment counts. So we are revisiting the case, what led up to this decision. Both sides had very compelling closing arguments as they wrapped up their case. Both sides long, as a matter of fact. Clearly, the jury was more swayed by the prosecution, but there were a lot of people who thought, wow, that defense closing statement really got me thinking. In her closing argument, the defense attorney said this case shouldn't be Ohio versus Lindsay Partin. It should be Ohio versus Jason Wesche, the little girl's father. She really pointed to a lot of holes in the prosecution's case, a lot of reasonable doubt. She had a poster board up in the courtroom that had a list of phrases. If you think, if you suspect, if you have any questions about whether Lindsay Partin did this, then you must acquit. She is not guilty because that equals reasonable doubt. Obviously, though, that was not compelling enough for the jury, as we have been saying. We do want to go to some of those closing arguments right now, but let me see if we have that ready. If not, I want to bring Roger Foley back on. Roger, as we said, this case is now done and over. If you're Partin's attorney, do you appeal right away?
Right now I don't know what the appellate issues are. I'd have to look through the entire transcript, but I'm guessing, and I think you're correct, Stacey. There's going to be some appellate issues. What they are exactly, I don't know off the top. I'm very curious about this other gentleman that Jason, the father, had driven somewhere, possibly left a child. Why wasn't he investigated? Why don't we have any input on him? So it could be new evidence that could possibly warrant a new trial, but I don't know without really going through that transcript.
I mean, is there any, basis in this case that, look, that detectives just did a shoddy job investigating because they didn't question that friend of Jason Wesche, because they didn't subpoena Jason Wesche's phone records or really do a comprehensive enough investigation of him?
Well, I mean, those are certainly issues, and those are debatable hot topics, but are they appellate issues? I mean, simply not doing a proper investigation is not necessarily grounds for appellate relief. So they need to find mistakes and possibly even mistakes made by the attorney to determine whether or not an appellate issue is going to be afforded here.
Let's talk about her sentencing. It's set for May 9th, and she faces a maximum of life in prison with the possibility of parole after 18 years. Obviously, it's hard to know how a judge will decide, and we'll be hearing statements from both sides. What do you think of that sentence? I mean, she's convicted of murdering a little girl. Life in prison does seem just. The possibility of parole after 18 years, I mean, some family members might not be happy about that, but is that the right thing?
Correct. It's a tough choice for this judge. I mean, again, the judge sat through the whole thing. She knows all the evidence. But I do expect a lengthy sentence. I mean, she has no choice. I mean, the jury of her peers has convicted this woman. So the judge has to make the appropriate sentence. And we're going to hear from friends and family members, and they're going to talk. And we're also going to hear about mitigating circumstances, about how this woman's never had any criminal problems. She's never been arrested. She has no criminal history. The positive things she's done in the community. But again, you said there's an 18-year minimum. So you can count on she'll have at least 18 years.
Okay, Roger, well, we do have those clips queued up now, so we're working a little bit backwards here, but let's go back to the defense's closing argument when she really did make some good arguments about why the prosecution's case was not strong enough.